We got lots coming up on News Talk right here on Saga 960. Miles Kristen from Wisconsin is going to be joining us. He wants to talk about Sleepy Joe needing a teleprompter to answer a question from a kid. It was all obviously staged, but he referred to one of the directions on the teleprompter. And he sounds slow. He just does sound slow. And what about this whole issue around what a bad job that Trump supposedly did on COVID? And how does that jive with what Biden himself said at the start of the pandemic? It's all coming your way after this.
Stream us live at saga960am.ca.
You're listening to the Marc Patrone radio program. If you'd like to call, here's the number: 416-640-0200. That's 416-640-0200. The Marc Patrone radio program, heard exclusively on News Talk, Saga 960.
All right, Joe Biden clearly using a teleprompter during a Q&A with a kid. So he was taking questions and, a girl, I don't know how, looks like maybe 12 years old or something like that, had a question for Joe, and clearly the guy he couldn't answer the question without a teleprompter. Let's listen to what that sounded like.
Do to help them, give them that chance. Thank you.
Let's move it up here. There used to be a basic bargain in this country. Workers shared in the wealth their work helped create.
Right.
So you could hear the pause there as you waited for the prompter to scroll up. You're used to seeing your political leaders be able to do the Q&A off the cuff. So I guess that, the Trump campaign is trying to make the diminished capacity of Joe Biden a campaign issue. But
well, why wouldn't it be, Miles Kristen? I mean, of course it's absolutely, you can't have a guy in the advanced stages of cognitive decline as the president of the United States. Why shouldn't it be an issue for the presidential election? Miles, what do you think?
It's absolutely an issue. It wouldn't be the first time. I mean, I'm sure we could debate for a while about Ronald Reagan's decline from when he started to, when he had full-on dementia at the end. And it's kind of, there's so many things with the Biden campaign that remind me of actually, back in '84, there was the VP candidate from 1980, Mondale, who ran with a woman by the name of Geraldine Ferraro.
Yep.
And they went on to lose every single state,
including Minnesota. Which is Mondale State was Minnesota. I think he couldn't even hold that one, from what I recall.
No, they kept Minnesota, but
they did. Okay.
They literally lost every single state in the entire union but Minnesota.
And then when Brett Baer from Fox News went to ask the Biden national secretary this question about that, so what is it? Why is it that he can't answer a question? Actually just tried to get him to answer the question as to whether or not he was using a teleprompter during a Q&A, especially with a kid. So this is like a softball. Let's listen to this.
Biden ever used a teleprompter during local interviews or to answer Q&A with supporters?
Brett, we are not going to engage. This is straight from the Trump campaign.
Well, yeah, they're using it.
And what it does, Brett, is it's trying to distract the American people.
They're using it. They talk about it every day. Can you say yes or no?
That's because they talk about it every day, Brett, because they don't have a coherent
Well, you have an answer. Yes or no?
Brett, they talk about it every day because they don't have a coherent argument for why Donald Trump deserves re-election, deserves 4 more years. We know that he lied to the American people. We know.
So there you go. I won't dignify that question with an answer. This is about Trump. But how is this guy supposed to answer questions, I don't know, during those White House briefings with reporters? Granted, we're talking about Democrat Party members when you're talking about most of the press corps in Washington. But even though you're still expected to field questions from reporters, and this guy can't even take one from a kid without having a teleprompter telling him what to say.
It's so incredibly scripted, and God, I mean, there's just 26 plus candidates that they had, and it's like this was the one that they went with. I mean, I think Bloomberg would have been scarier in the sense that, like, Bloomberg was far more authoritarian and so forth. But, I mean, at least Bloomberg was able to semi-coherently, I mean, Bloomberg was such a liar, so it was hard for him to answer things, but he was still capable of physically answering a question. You know, I mean, this is one of the worst candidates they could have possibly gone with.
Well, according to Trump, he is the worst worst candidate ever in the history of presidential campaigns. In fact, I think he even said worst ever in politics in the United States. I mean, I don't know about that, but man, he's pretty bad. He is terrible. Miles Kristen joining us from near Madison, Wisconsin, right here in Saga 960. All right, so you've been seeing the signage out in Wisconsin, near Milwaukee and elsewhere in the state. What are you seeing in terms of Trump versus Biden signs?
So yeah, I this week I actually drove all over southern Wisconsin, from basically Lake Michigan out to practically the Minnesota side. And it's funny, as we go out to western Wisconsin, which does have a Democratic rep, a very conservative, or I don't know how you want to describe him, but basically a Democratic rep who supported a lot of George Bush's policies, like the war and so forth, you know. And then all the way out to Cedarburg area, which is north of Milwaukee. And it was funny, I was in the town of Cedarburg yesterday. I mean, we're talking 95% Trump signs everywhere. I mean, this is a small town just north of Milwaukee. And then when I went to western Wisconsin, I mean, I think it seemed to me like it was 70% Biden signs out there. And now Tony Evers won the governor race a couple years ago only by, I want to say, like less than a few thousand votes. And there have also been two state Supreme Court races in the last few years that the Democrats have won. So if I had to guess right now, I think it's very likely that Biden could win the state of Wisconsin. But, I mean, we're talking really close.
Okay. And things could change between now and Election Day. Obviously, you still got almost 2 months to go. 49 days, is it?
Yeah, and I mean, and you know, the thing is, I can't remember if it's 8 or 9 electoral votes, but I mean, both Wisconsin and Michigan are, you know, basically less than 10 electoral votes. So really, I think if the two most important states are going to be Florida and Pennsylvania.
All right. Okay. So I think, but the polling has Trump surging from what I hear, and I don't know how true that is. And then there's the other story, of course, that all those shy Trump voters, somewhere around, my understanding, 17% of people intending to vote for Trump say that they're not going to tell you that they're going to vote for Trump for whatever reason. They're afraid.
I don't think the measuring of how they do these polls, I mean, I don't see where did they stop doing the polls the way they did in 2016. How have they changed anything? I mean, people are still listening to that, what's his name, Nate Silver, and the 380 or whatever that number's website is. Yeah. People are still listening to that guy. People are still listening to the same people who were completely wrong in 2016. I got polled the other day, and what was so insane about it was the woman was, you know, there was no mention of the third and fourth parties. It was like you're either voting for Biden or you're voting for Trump. And I was kind of messing with her when she was asking me where I was from. I was telling her I was from Pakistan, and then she goes, okay, so we'll put you down as Middle Eastern or North African. And I'm like, no, Pakistan's not in either of those places. And so these poll takers, I mean, are not that intelligent necessarily.
Let's talk about COVID and the handling of COVID, because this is a big issue. I understand it's a big issue in Wisconsin, especially amongst old, elderly people, many of whom are vulnerable to the spread of this, certainly more likely to die, especially if they have a chronic health condition. The question of whether or not Trump did a good job or not a good job, if you ask the Democrats, he did a terrible job and Joe Biden could have done a much better job. But they won't really say what he would have done differently. Let's listen a little bit once again to Bret Baier talking to the individual representing Joe Biden. This is TJ Ducklow from the Biden campaign, trying to respond to a question about, well, what would Joe have done differently?
Donald Trump was the president of the United States. It was on Donald Trump.
I'm asking you if Joe Biden was the president of the United States.
It was on Donald Trump to take action to actually protect the American people.
He closed the travel to China.
Joe Biden wrote an op-ed in USA Today in January warning that the threat was coming. Joe Biden said in February that Donald Trump should get people on the ground in China. What did Donald Trump do? Donald Trump was praising China. Donald Trump was praising President Xi's response, saying that they had it under control, when clearly he knew, as we now know from Bob Woodward, they did not have it under control. He should have been protecting the American people. He should have been putting real plans in place.
So let me just clarify.
Actually confront this incredibly dangerous
threat.
Let
me just clarify. You're saying that Joe Biden was for closing down travel from China when the president did it?
Joe Biden has been clear, and I can send you the fact checks if they're helpful, Brett. Joe Biden has been clear that he was not against that travel ban.
But he was for it?
Joe Biden has been clear about this, Brett. I can send you the fact checks if they're helpful. This has been fact checked into oblivion.
Okay, I'm just asking you the question. You're saying yes, he was for the China travel ban when the president implemented it 48 hours after receiving that briefing.
The important thing about the travel ban,
yes or no? Yes or no?
And I know, Brett, I know that you all like to cite the travel ban. I know the president
No, the president does. That's why I'm bringing it up. Obviously, it's going to be in a debate.
Brett, hold on.
All right.
The important thing to know about the travel ban
is it's a lie. We know that, in fact, Biden called Trump pretty much a racist, saying he indulged in hysterical xenophobia because of that travel ban when he first introduced it. And so the Democrats jumped all over Trump for taking the steps he did. So for them now to try and rewrite history, saying that they were in favor of the travel ban all along is an absolute 100% lie. I mean, let's go back to when originally the issue of a travel ban came up. Okay, let's listen to Joe Biden himself. Let's hear him in his own words.
Coronavirus emanated from China. A national emergency, worldwide alerts. The American people need to have a president who they can trust what he says about it, that he is going to act rationally about it. In moments like this is where the credibility of the president is most needed, as he explains what we should and should not do. This is no time for Donald Trump's record of hysteria, xenophobia,
hysterical xenophobia, Miles. So he's basically saying the move to stop flights in from Wuhan province, specifically in Europe later on, was basically racist. That's what he said originally. I don't know. What do you make of it? Miles?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that with had Democrats been in charge, I mean, I could see them possibly even making it worse. The question I always think about is like, how would Hillary Clinton have handled it? And I always joke at Hillary Clinton would have probably rounded people up and put them in, camps or something. I mean, I actually think Hillary Clinton could have been a much scarier and more tyrannical person in that situation.
What's the idea of sending people? So the Democrats apparently were telling Trump, you got to send some people onto the ground in China. China was deceiving the world on COVID. If you go back to January, I mean, they were using their mouthpiece at the World Health Organization to tell the world that this is not spread. In fact, here in this country, we have a prime minister who basically said, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. It's not a big deal. He was shipping our PPE, 16 tons of our critical PPE to China at that time because he figured they were laughing off any concerns that this thing was going to be a big deal. And so Trudeau is very much in line with whatever the mouthpieces are at the Democrat Party.
It's such a massive failure that happened in our government and probably governments all over the world, where we have medical professionals who were laid off or furloughed when they should have been put to use in possibly areas outside of their normal job to help prevent the spread of this. You know, we have politicians like the mayor in Madison and the governor who were critical of, you know, people going to church, and then yet if you want to have a riot or protest or whatever, they are okay with that. I mean, now you got people coming back to school at UW Madison, and we already got hundreds and hundreds of cases, and it's like, it's weird how, oh, okay, we're going to be cool with, you know, hundreds of kids from all over the world coming into this city because that's financially beneficial to, you know, Madison. Protests, they see that as beneficial to the voting. Actually, it's really probably not. And, you know, it's just the hypocrisy of, like, what we, you know, allow and disagree with when it, you know, who's getting together, how does it affect this political party, you know?
Are people pushing back in Wisconsin on the mask laws, on the, you know, the quarantines?
Well, there isn't really much of a quarantine anymore in Wisconsin. I mean, there's some restrictions on bars and restaurants, and you're required to wear a mask in businesses, and yet a lot of people, you know, they'll just walk into a business not wearing a mask. I mean, I definitely think that a business has the right to enforce policies, and, you know, you could debate about the states giving them the policy or they're enforcing their own policy, but you know, it's really, I mean, the biggest thing is, like, people 20 to, you know, well, 18 to 30 just being really stupid about it. I mean, when you see these incidences where, oh, all of a sudden there's 100 students, it's like, well, what were they doing? Oh, they were all at a frat party. It's like, you know, I feel so old saying this, but it's like, these young people need to act smarter. It's like, no, there's a lot of stupid kids out there making this situation worse.
All right, Miles, can you come back next week, talk about the latest in the election and other stuff?
Absolutely.
Miles Christen coming to us from near Madison, Wisconsin.